Hey Pikmin. Those two words are enough to immediately make a Pikmin fan initiate their fight or flight reactions. It's a name that lays in infamy in the Pikmin community, but why and what even is Hey Pikmin? A lot of people dog on it and make jokes at the game's expense, but nobody ever really tells you why they dislike it. It's like the anti-Earthbound, where instead of having fans that haven't played the game, it has haters that haven't played the game. I've never really seen a video that delves into Hey Pikmin and why people dislike it, and also why there's a minority of people that do actually enjoy it, so I decided to replay the game and take a deep dive into it. This video is an in-depth look at Hey Pikmin along with its history and reputation. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe for high quality Pikmin videos weekly. Now, most games get their critical reputation on release. It comes out, it's either good or concord, and we all move on. If a game is highly anticipated or part of a beloved franchise, then maybe its reputation will be skewed more positively before it comes out, but usually not too much. While hype is good for game marketing and sales, Hey Pikmin didn't get hype. It got the exact opposite and had a negative reputation months before it even came out. And by the time it actually came out, everyone was already sick of it. The game was announced in a late 2016 Nintendo Direct for the late 3DS. Now, most people that were anticipating a new Pikmin game weren't looking for a 3DS spin-off. They were looking for the highly coveted Pikmin 4, which was brought up only a year prior by Miyamoto in an interview, where he said that it was nearing completion. Now, when those people who were expecting Pikmin 4 from the first few seconds of the reveal, only to be immediately hit with the slow-moving side-scroller for the 3DS, they were a little disappointed. Now, most of this would be rectified if the gameplay clips made the game look like fun, but they kinda dropped the ball with the initial trailers. All of the gameplay clips are dry, slow, and only really show Pikmin doing small basic tasks. It's not a very good look for the game, and I guess for a slight spoiler for the rest of the video, no, the game is not as dull as this trailer makes it out to be. This narrator also is not helping anything either. He sounds like he's on the verge of abruptly bursting into a snore-filled sleep session.
The mysterious creatures known as Pikmin are joining the fearless space explorer Olimar for a side-scrolling adventure game on Nintendo 3DS. Pikmin follow Olimar around, and then you tap the touchscreen where you want to throw.
Is this guy a Microsoft spy trying to sabotage sales? Would it kill him to at least describe the game he's advertising like a fun time instead of using the same tone of voice used at funerals? To make things even worse, I brought up that interview where Miyamoto stated that Pikmin 4 was in development and very close to completion. Well, because that article came out in 2015 and Hey Pikmin was released in 2016, it didn't take a while for people to start connecting the dots. People will claim that this game was what Miyamoto was talking about in the interview, or sometimes even the more outlandish claim that Hey Pikmin was actually Pikmin 4. Neither of these were correct, but it took until 2023 for both of them to be disproven, and a lot of people latched onto these theories because back then they didn't seem too far-fetched. I mean, the Pikmin 4 one was pretty out there, but the interview one does seem to add up because of the close proximity of the article and the reveal of the game. Yet again, this one isn't true. In 2023, we were told that Pikmin 4 was actually in development around that time, but was scrapped and restarted. Hey Pikmin also wasn't developed by Nintendo like many people thought. It was outsourced to our Zest. You may recognize them from such classic gems such as Ball and Wonderland. Now, because the game didn't look that good along with the potential that the highly anticipated Pikmin 4 was not close to completion and it was actually some dinky 3DS game, a lot of people already disliked it before it came out. Nintendo also didn't really push the game that hard either. It was up to famous YouTuber Arlo to advertise it with his video, "Pikmin on the 3DS Pains Me." Uh-oh. Okay, well, Arlo obviously didn't single-handedly cause the downfall of Hey Pikmin, but his video was pretty representative of how people felt about it at the time. There were news articles with such unbiased titles like "Don't Get Too Excited for Hey Pikmin," where they didn't even have the respect to spell the game's name correctly, and they also used the phrase Pikmin 4 more times than the game the article is actually about. Hey Pikmin was more of an afterthought in people's mind, and most people were more concerned about Pikmin 4. It probably wouldn't have, but if it was released earlier, maybe around 2014, the reaction probably wouldn't have been that bitter. And because the negative reputation stuck around, nobody really gave the game a fair chance. The common opinion was that the game was bad, and if you hadn't played it, it should stay that way. As you can see, most people had their opinions set in stone, and Hey Pikmin immediately received a pretty nasty reputation. The game also sold horribly, not even being able to break past 500,000 copies worldwide, which is abysmal even for a relatively small series like Pikmin. Despite this potentially unfair reputation towards Hey Pikmin, how is the actual game itself? Well, as mentioned earlier, it's a side-scroller for the 3DS, and we can get the gist of the game from the first few levels. You start off at the title screen, and the game immediately asks if the glowies can watch everything you do. No thanks. The game has a pretty standard Pikmin plot. Olimar is on his way home, but disaster strikes and he gets hit with a meteor and crashes onto PNF 404, where he needs to recruit the Pikmin to help him collect treasures to escape. This is a really basic Pikmin affair, and the main goal is collect 30,000 Sparklium, which is used to fuel the ship. It's basically a mix of Pikmin 1 and 2's goals. You start off with an obnoxiously long tutorial, which is pretty unnecessary as Hey Pikmin is not a complex game. After that, you're in the first level. You don't grow Pikmin in this game, instead you make Olimar yell hey at certain spots and the Pikmin will start following you. Yeah, for some reason Olimar's had a lot of helium in this game, and he sounds like a gnome trying to do an impersonation of a Pokemon trainer. His voice in every other game is usually really deep, so it's kinda jarring listening to him flamboyantly go hey every time you need to collect Pikmin. Though this obviously is only a really small issue. Well, the level is basic enough, it's linear and you crawl through it. Sometimes you have to access a secret room to get a treasure, there's sometimes an enemy in your way, but they're all pretty easy to deal with. And you can also find Sparklium seeds scattered around every level, which help increase the Sparklium count. They're basically like coins in Mario in this game. Controlling the Pikmin is easy enough as well, you just tap on the bottom screen where you want to throw them and they will be thrown there. It's responsive and feels satisfying to do at times. There's no time limit or multitasking in any of the levels, and not much resource management either, as the Pikmin can infinitely respawn at some points. All three of these are staples of the Pikmin series, so their exclusion is strange. The biggest addition to the formula is the jetpack, which lets Olimar hover in a straight line in the air and is usually only used to reach secret enemies. Anyways, we complete level 1, and what I described on level 1 was basically just the entire game's formula. That's it, I wasn't lying when I said this game was simple. It's already pretty clear why people wouldn't be a fan of this game. It's a sluggish 2D side-scroller with really simple mechanics and virtually nothing that made the original trilogy special. But you might also notice I didn't really bring up any major flaws, and because for the most part this game doesn't have any. All of the levels are solidly designed with simple to understand mechanics and gimmicks. The only real flaws here, aside from one I'll get to later, is the sometimes sizable amount of downtime spent waiting for an object to be collected, and also that thing that all subpar side-scrollers do, where there's two doors, one has a secret and the other just carries you on as normal. And you will never pick the door that has the secret, and there's no way to backtrack to it either. Stop doing this! Because of the lack of real deep flaws, it's also easy to see why this game has its fans. A lot of people find the simple gameplay loop relaxing and enjoy its simplicity. If you come into this game expecting something with the same level as quality as the mainline Pikmin games, you aren't going to enjoy yourself. But if you lower your expectations before heading in and know what you're getting into, you might actually get a kick out of it. The main issues with Hey Pikmin isn't what it does, it's what it doesn't do. It doesn't do anything bad, but also doesn't do anything spectacular either. It's one of the most by-the-books, generic, inoffensive side-scrollers I've ever played, and has basically none of the elements that made the original Pikmin game special either. I know it's supposed to be a spin-off, but most spin-offs at least incorporate key elements from the original games into a new format. The biggest example is the level structure. Every level is linear and you are basically always moving forwards. The level ends when you reach the goal, and then you go on to the next level and the game is split into worlds. This linear flow and structure is a far cry from the Pikmin series levels, where they were not linear and had a lot more free exploration and discovery in them. You could also tackle levels in basically any order you want to do after they're all unlocked. This system could still work in a 2D environment and would probably be really fun, but Hey Pikmin instead goes for standard linear levels, which for the most part are fine but lack the charm and exploration of the old games. The easiest way I can put it is that Hey Pikmin doesn't feel like a spin-off, it feels like a generic 2D side-scroller with a Pikmin theming. Theming is definitely one thing the game gets right and is often the most praised aspect by Hey Pikmin's fans. The levels look appealing and all fit in with the series. Most of the enemies look great as well, aside from a few duds. This isn't a Pikmin enemy, it's a yellow Thanksgiving turkey trying to do goatsy. The Piclopedia is in this game as well, and you get Olimar's notes on the enemies, Pikmin and treasures, which is cool and greatly adds to the Pikmin charm. The soundtrack is also great as well, and is yet again one of the more memorable aspects of the game. All the boss fights get their own unique boss themes, which is neat. The actual level locations are usually really good as well, with things like mechanical rust yards, poisonous bogs, crystal-filled caves, and fiery wastelands. All these I'm surprised have never been used as area themes in the mainline Pikmin games. Speaking of the enemies and bosses, they are a lot less exciting than you would think. Most of the enemies look a lot cooler than they actually are, and the vast majority of them act the exact same way. Almost a quarter of the enemy roster consists of small enemies that die in one hit. I can at least respect that they went through the effort of designing original enemy designs and species instead of recycling older ones. In fact, a large portion of this game's enemy roster is completely unique designs, which is great. The bosses are also pretty hit or miss. I like some of them, such as the Queen Shearwig and Long Water Dumple, but there are several bosses that are either just okay or just flat out bad. The Fiery Blowhog, Armark, and Electric Cognate are all just really boring boss fights that move at an unbearably sluggish pace and aren't interesting at all. Most of the Electric Cognate's fight is spent hugging the wall to avoid his one attack and then throwing Pikmin at him for some damage. That's it. There's no tension and it goes on around for 2 minutes, which sounds short, but this fight absolutely drags on and is way too easy for the point of the game it appears in. Also, speaking of difficulty, there isn't much of it. Well, not much if you play the game normally, but we'll get to that. The game is really easy aside from a few select levels at the tail end of the game, and this this lack of difficulty probably isn't helping much in making the game feel less monotonous. There's no real spikes or increases in difficulty, the scale is flat for the entire game. This game also gets described as a puzzle game, but the puzzles are also pretty easy. There's this puzzle where I enter this room, I can't reach the treasure, so I have to find yellow Pikmin, which are 5 seconds away from the room, go back to the room, and slowly collect the treasure. Not a difficult puzzle at all, and if you think I'm cherry picking an example from an early game level, I'm not. This puzzle shows up in the 3rd level of the final world, and the other puzzles in that level are as equally difficult. In every level there's also these mini cutscenes of the Pikmin doing some shenanigans, which are kinda charming the first few times, but they can start getting old quick, considering there are usually 3 of them in every single level, with you being unable to skip them unless you are replaying a level. They should have probably used them more sparingly, because if there's only like 1 cutscene every level I probably wouldn't be complaining, but 3 of them can be a pretty big pace breaker in an already slow game. There's nothing wrong with the cutscenes themselves though, they're all pretty short and entertaining. Well, I guess in the few instances where the game gets tough, you can always unwind it in this new Pikmin Park. This was an advertised feature of the game, but it's not anything too crazy. It's this hub where you can see the Pikmin run around the onion, and you can command the different types to either dig through grass or a specific element hazard. Because of the 3DS's low resolution screens, you don't notice that the Pikmin are eyeless freaks in the Pikmin Park. That's not the only instance of weird looking Pikmin. The 3DS icon has a blue Pikmin that is lacking his mouth, making him look like a pill. Back on topic, after you commanded the Pikmin to dig through grass, you would usually have to play a level or 2 for them to finish, and your reward is always either a bit of sparklium or a treasure.
He won a ceiling fan!
The Pikmin Park really only serves as a slight distraction, and its inclusion is fine for this type of game. There's also the Pikmin themselves, who are the same 5 types seen in the main campaign of Pikmin 3. The onion in this game has colours for whites and purples, but they don't show up in this game at all. The Pikmin all behave as you would expect and keep their traits, and this game is probably the most balanced when it comes to the Pikmin types, as they're all equally good. This isn't really much of an achievement because the game's linear structure, but still something worth noting. There's also this Pikmin Amiibo that came out to promote Hey Pikmin, featuring 5 Pikmin on this weird rock that I don't think ever actually appears in the game. If you are wondering, yes, Hey Pikmin does have Amiibo support in 2 ways. If you scan an Amiibo in a level, you would receive extra Pikmin, which is pretty impractical. The far more interesting use was that you could scan certain amiibos to unlock secret stages, and also get a Piclopedia article about that amiibo, where Olimar describes it the best he can. It's a pretty fun addition. Anyways, to cap off Hey Pikmin, we'll be ending on a sour note with probably the game's worst aspect. For most Pikmin games, a 100% completion is the way to go. You are missing out if you don't 100% a Pikmin game, but I have never 100%ed Hey Pikmin, and that is for one reason. The Deathless Medals. The worst collectibles in a Pikmin game are one that break the flow of the gameplay and make you dedicate time to them solely. Things such as the Doomsday Apparatus or Pikmin 4's Fetch Quest, and despite the radically different style of gameplay, Hey Pikmin's Deathless Medals fall into that category. These medals are really self-explanatory. You beat the level without a single Pikmin dying and you get a medal. I'm of the staunch opinion that beating a Pikmin game deathless should be a completely optional challenge with no incentive or reward for doing it. It can be really tedious and difficult at times, and has always stayed as an optional challenge for the most dedicated players, which is good. When the game forces you to do the game deathless, problems arise, especially when that game is Hey Pikmin. You aren't going to do every level deathless in Hey Pikmin on your first try, so that means replaying levels. And this game, as stated earlier, is okay, so the levels aren't really that good to the point where I would want to replay them more than once. The Deathless Medal seems annoying but not too bad, but if you ever attempted to do this, you already know what I'm about to complain about, and that is these stupid fucking Crumb Bugs. These are the very first enemies you encounter in the entire game, so you'd think they would be the easiest, but no. They act as miniature reverse Smoky Progs in the sense that if you hit the front of them, that Pikmin is dead. The Crumb Bug doesn't attack the Pikmin just awkwardly touches its face and it dies. You have to have the aim of Luke Linter to consistently kill these guys, and it is really easy to barely miss and immediately lose a Pikmin. Now couple that with them showing up in nearly every level where you'll have to land this precise shot several times, and you will probably give up the Deathless Medals immediately. The challenge doesn't come from the level designs or clever enemy design, no, it all comes from one downright unfair enemy. Do you think having to replay average levels that can last over 8 minutes because you failed to meld to a Crumb Bug seems fun? The answer is no. I know Pikmin 2 had the same thing in its challenge mode, but it wasn't good there and it's even worse here. If you decide to play Hey Pikmin, don't bother with these. They aren't fun. They don't feel like a natural part of the game and just feel like they were put there for padding. So in conclusion, Hey Pikmin isn't a bad game, but it's not a good game either. The hate for this game is definitely blown out of proportion, it is not badly designed, and at worst, it's just boring. The reason I say it's not a good game is because, yet again, it doesn't really do anything unique, and it's just really standard. It's not really a game I can recommend because there's a pretty high chance you'll find it monotonous, and even if you like the gameplay loop, it's pretty hard to stick around till the end of the game, and it's pretty hard to play without your mind going, why am I playing this instead of an actual Pikmin game or any other 3DS's better side-scrollers and platformers? It's also only really tolerable in short doses. I can't play this game for longer than 15 minutes. So you really need to split up your playthrough of it to get maximum enjoyment without wearing yourself out. If you watched this video and thought that the gameplay loop looked relaxing enough and you can manage a more slow-paced side-scroller, then I would recommend giving it a shot. But if you aren't one of those people, don't play the one on the 3DS.